Penny made it clear the door is not shut on PJ Haggerty. There are some schools, some programs, like, say, the Tennessee football program, that might say, hey, if you don't want to be here, then get on with it. We're going to lock the door behind you. There's no turning back. That's what they told their starting quarterback a couple of weeks ago. Penny Hardaway has made it clear that, in a perfect world, PJ Haggerty would not have gotten into the transfer portal. Mm-hmm. But he understands why he would and supports his decision to do so. And they will keep in touch and maintain a good relationship. And if PJ Haggerty decides that Memphis is ultimately the best place for him, he will have a home back at the University of Memphis. Bennett, as someone who cares deeply about that program, you like that, don't you?
Oh, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah, that would be great. I don't think you have to do this at every program. In other words, tell your player who just entered the transfer portal that, hey, buddy, we got a spot for you back here if you want it, whenever you want it. Like, I don't know that you have to do that at Kentucky or at Louisville or some of these places that are operating with lots and lots and lots of money. St. John's is one now. But at Memphis, it is the most sensible thing to do if you're Penny Hardaway. Mm-hmm. Don't shut the door on anything. You are operating from a disadvantaged place. That's just pretty clear at this point. In years past, Memphis had comparable money to lots of power conference programs and more money than some. That no longer seems to be true. And so, with much of the reporting suggesting that PJ Haggerty's asking price of $4 million and point guard responsibilities, with all the reporting suggesting that might not get met, then perhaps he watches a price drop or comes to the realization he's a great college basketball player, but ain't worth that much to anybody. Mm-hmm. Not at that position, at least. He might realize that, okay, I can take maybe more money, but to go play for a coach I'd never met before 2 weeks ago and at a school that I'm unfamiliar with, is there a way then that Memphis could make the pot good enough to just convince him to come back and try to be an All-American for the Tigers for the second straight year? Perhaps. I don't know. In fact, I'm not optimistic. But perhaps, and I thought Penny was smart to handle this the way he handled it. He expressed frustration with the system, the chaotic nature of it. He even said, and I've been telling you this for a while, like, the prices we're dealing with right now are not the prices we used to deal with. Mm-hmm. Whatever you think you're paying for eggs relative to what you used to pay for eggs, I know that's a big topic around the country, just trust me, the price hike on eggs ain't got nothing on the price hike on basketball players. The same dude who cost you $150,000 last summer is costing you $500,000 right now. That's where we're at. And so Penny expressed frustration with the chaotic nature of the system and how players who aren't even All-Americans, like Robert Wright at Baylor, are literally getting $3 million to change schools. I get the frustration. I understand his sentiment, but he stopped well short of criticizing PJ Haggerty. In fact, made it clear he supports him and is happy for him to even be in a position to capitalize. So Penny handled that well. The only question I think you now have to deal with if you're him or his staff, and I don't know that there's a great answer to this, but the transfer portal is now closed. Mm-hmm. That happened last night. Everybody who's in there is in there. Yesterday, at this time, I could say the transfer portal's still open, and you don't know who's going to get in there before it closes. A week ago, transfer portal's open. You don't know who's going to get in there before it closes. So you watch one guy come off the board. Well, like another guy might come back on the board. So my point is now there is a defined amount of supply. Everybody who's in that thing is in that thing now. When somebody comes out of it, they don't get replaced by somebody else. When the seventh best transfer is gone now, they don't get replaced by a new transfer who could jump into the top five.
Right.
Whatever the number is, and it's in excess of 2,000, that number no longer gets added to. It shrinks. This is my point. Let's say you're sitting around and I'm I'm just throwing a number out. Don't take the number seriously. I'm not saying that Memphis is holding $2 million for PJ Haggerty. But for the sake of the conversation, let's just say that Memphis has $2 million for PJ Haggerty. He's not ready to take it yet. He's going to go through the NBA draft process. He's going to consider all his options. You can hand him $2 million right now. He's not ready to take it. He won't take it. But he might take it later. Do you just hold it on the off chance that he might take it later? Because if he does, great. You just brought back a second-team All-American. But if you're holding $2 million for PJ Haggerty, and he keeps telling you there's a chance he'll come back, so you keep holding it for him, and then he goes through the draft process, and several months pass, and this transfers off the board, and this transfers off the board, and this transfers off the board, and suddenly PJ Haggerty tells you, hey, I've made a decision, I'm staying in the draft. Or I've made a decision, I'm going to Houston. Whatever. Now you've got this money, but there ain't no players. Or at least none good enough to help you in any sort of meaningful way. There ain't no $2 million players left out there.
No, there's not.
That's the tough situation. It's a little bit like, I remember going to a recruiting, it was a coaching clinic one time down at Florida. Billy Donovan and Larry Shyatt were running it. And Billy, I thought this was really smart. Billy brought in somebody to do an hour session on recruiting. And do you know who the person was? A salesman who knew nothing about basketball.
Of course.
A guy who knew nothing about basketball. But here's what he said. He said, coaches, I'm going to ask you a question. All of you. And I'm talking like Brad Stevens is there, Billy Donovan's there, the whole, some of the biggest names in the sport. And this salesman said, I'm going to ask you a question. How often do you go into a recruitment thinking, I'm going to get this player, he's mine, and then you actually get him? And they were like, yeah, pretty often. That's usually the way it goes. If you feel good about it at the jump, there's a good chance you're going to get that one done. He said, okay, cool. I assume that much. He said, let me ask you the opposite. How often do you go into a recruitment where you think, man, this is going to be tough? If we were ranking this thing right now, I'd probably be in 4th place. And you actually get that done. You finish first. They're like, yeah, that doesn't really happen too often. Okay, then stay out of those. You're wasting your time. All right? You're wasting your time. You can get on anybody's list, but if you're 4th on the list from the jump, you probably ain't getting that done. You're just wasting time. And while you're wasting all this time getting strung along, these other players that you can get are coming off the board. Now you finally get the no 3 months later, or in some cases with recruiting 3 years into the recruitment, you finally get the no. You're like, okay, I guess it's time to move on. But by the time you move on, there ain't nobody else out there for you. So don't get strung along in stuff that's not going to turn out well for you. The best thing you can hear in a recruitment is an early yes. The worst thing you can hear is a late no. The second best thing you can hear is an early no. Tell me no now. If you're going to tell me no in 3 months, tell me no now so I can get on with it. That's the uncomfortable position Penny's now in. He's not going to get an early yes, and he's not going to get an early no. So now you're hoping for a late yes. But that late no can be a killer if the late no comes and the transfer portal has been sorted through and all the best players are gone.
I'll tell you what I'm hoping for. I feel like I'm having deja vu all over again with DeAndre Williams. I'm hoping Dane Danger can get that waiver because I don't think he entered. And so if he gets a waiver, it looks like he'd come back to Memphis.
I hope so too.
Yeah.
Nobody seems to think that's likely.
The waiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I hope so.
Me too.
But if you're counting on that.
I'm not. But I think that's something that
I wouldn't rule
just
it out.
another thing
know.
You can hope for while you're hoping that PJ thing works out. That's another thing that's man, I hope that happens.
Yeah, sometimes I come on here and I'm like, I'll tell you exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Right? I know exactly what Memphis should do in conference realignment. I know exactly what Memphis should do in this. Sometimes I have all the answers. I'm not suggesting I have the answer here. I don't know exactly the right way for Penny to handle this. I just know it's an uncomfortable situation. On one hand, you want to wait on PJ Haggerty.
For sure.
Because there's nobody you can get as good as him. Nobody. There's
That's
nobody
right.
Memphis can add to the roster as good as that guy. So on one hand, you want to wait, but the worst thing that can happen to you would not be PJ Haggerty telling you no today. It would be PJ Haggerty telling you no in 2 months.
And everybody else is gone.
And everybody else is gone.
Yeah.
Because if PJ Haggerty told you no today, you start throwing that money around to other people and trying to get things done right now. But if you're waiting on him and then he tells you no, and then, oh, by the way, the rules could be changed by then.
Mm-hmm.
The rules could change any week.
God, it's crazy.
You like what you're trying to do for PJ Haggerty right now might not be allowed 2 weeks from now. So you're waiting on him. You're holding this money. You can't get an answer. Maybe it works out, but maybe it doesn't. And if it doesn't, you'd rather it not work out now than not work out 2 months from now. It's a complicated, uncomfortable situation. Let's hope it ends well.
The Gary Parrish Show, live weekdays at 10 a.m.